Hey, what's up? It's your buddy Mike Squires, and this is the Couchers Podcast, episode number 206. 206. My old zip code, or area code. I had a lot of zip codes. My guest this episode is John Stippell, who is the guitarist of a band called Somerset Thrower from Long Island. Most everyone's from Long Island. John's living in Chicago now. He's also the global brand director of Spectre basses. I don't know if you guys have seen the episode of Couch Riffs where we did a Red Hot Chili Pepper song, Behind the Sun, and I played a Spectre bass. That was on loan from John. So thank you again, John. I live not far from the Spectre bass factory, which is very, very, very cool place. I visited a couple times, and I am hoping to visit more and more and more. What cool. Yeah. I just love, you know what I love? I love guitars. I love being around guitars. I like being around guitars being built. Especially, I like to play basses and guitars. Just whatever, just guitars, man. What's not to love? Loud ones, quiet ones, all of them. We had a great conversation. It was long. We had a little bit of a technical thing happen in the middle, but it's not going to bother you. If it does, talk to your therapist about it, okay? Not my problem. It's not a problem. You're not even going to notice. I swear. It's totally cool. Here we go. Jeez Louise. Thank you, John, for giving me so much time. I had a great time. Check out his playlist on Spotify also. We have a guest playlist. Every week, our guest submits a list of songs to Couch Riffs, and I put that up on a Couch Riffs podcast guest playlist. So check it out. There's a killer one up from last week, Dave Hill. One of the most dynamic playlists we've posted. So I'm looking forward to seeing what John submits. So thank you so much, John. Please check out Variety Coffee Roasters. I want to thank Coffee Variety. I want to thank Variety Coffee. What is going on? I need more coffee. Speaking of which, I drink Variety Coffee every single morning. That's no lie. So I can't recommend it more highly than something that I use, right? So go check out varietycoffeeroasters.com. What the hell is wrong with me? varietycoffeeroasters.com. And you can find their subscription service there. Now, you can subscribe to coffee. So you go on there, they ask you, a couple questions. What do you like? How do you make your coffee? How often do you want it? And then boom, surprise, every, week, 2 weeks or month, you'll get a bag of coffee. And you're going to love it. Please go check them out. And we're working on a new merch item, maybe a co-branded merch item for folks who want to use a code over there. If you don't want to subscribe and you just want to buy some coffee and use a discount code, get a little goodie, get a little Couchras variety goodie. Be sure to follow them on social media also. Variety Coffee Roasters on Instagram, all the places where you do those sorts of things. That's it. We're going to get into this. We are going to get into it. All right. Don't forget the golden rule. You guys know the golden rule, right? Just treat people the way you want to be treated. It's not that hard. It's quite easy, in fact. Imagine being on the receiving end of what you're saying to someone and then adjust accordingly.
Or even like a monitor mix live and just like, I just barely want to hear myself.
Yeah, that's funny. I do the same thing. Almost no matter what instrument I'm playing.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I think it's just probably self-consciousness or not ever hearing yourself playing in garages and shitty clubs with no PAs.
Right. Maybe it's just the idea of if you're hearing your too much of yourself, like the tiniest little thing that normally when you hear it back, you'd be like, oh, that's just a killer performance. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's a killer performance. If you hear yourself too much, you're listening almost too critically. It's like under a microscope, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably what it is. You're not used to it, and then you're not hearing the context. Like I remember one of the more recent gigs I played where it was like sounded horrible on stage. Like I can only hear myself and the kick drum, and then you think that that's what the audience hears, right? So you're just like,
Right.
this is horrible. Why would anybody pay money to see this?
What a terrible show, man. That's always the one where afterwards they roll up and they're like, that was incredible.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what happened. And I was like, really? Because it didn't feel that way for me.
So we're rolling, and people
Cool.
caught us just sort of like half midway into the conversation because we were talking about microphone, how well we could hear each other over the new system here. But welcome. I'm so glad that this has been over a year of conversation of revisiting. Like, hey, come on, let's do the podcast.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked. Thanks for having me. I can't even remember. I know we met in person for the first time at the Spectre shop, but we had gotten in touch somehow before that through email, and I
Yeah.
think you being around kind of Hudson Valley and hearing about Spectre and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, I wasn't shy about just reaching out. I had no idea. Like when I moved up here, I started learning all kinds of stuff about what's going on in the area. And it's pretty interesting and it's getting crazier up here.
yeah, I would imagine. How long you been up there?
Over 3 years now, but this is not an interview about me, sir.
Well, I don't live there obviously, but we started going there 4 or 5 years ago when we were still working with Stewart and Spector, and there was always a vibe up there for sure, um, but lately I would say through COVID and the pandemic stuff, it's probably gotten way more densely populated, and I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of new businesses popping up if they haven't already around that Kingston area.
There have been some great side effects of COVID up here, at least, because when we got up here, there were a couple good places to eat, but now plenty of frustrated New York folks have come up here, and it just sort of has spurred their one of these days I'm gonna, I'm gonna open up my own little spot in the country, and it's just sort of like accelerated those
Yeah, totally.
dreams into, probably 5% of those dreams have come true so far, but it's been great for people who live up here who want to eat at somewhere that isn't like Sherry's or the Waffle House. Not that there's anything wrong with either of those places. I do love a good diner.
It's a time and a place for Waffle House for sure. I think like going back to kind of what's all been going on up there, that was the vibe for a whole generation of people in the late 80s, early 90s. These same guys, Stuart Spector, one of them, Ned Steinberger, Mike Tobias, Harvey Citron, Joe Viette. These are all like city guys for the most part that had, some success, I guess, in the music industry, had brands, um, and they all kind of relocated up to that area around the same time, and we're like kind of the same thing. It was like, all right, we did it. We had some success. I want to just build what I want to build, and I want to be able to have a nice life and be close to the city if I have to be. And
I
when I'm
want to have
not,
a
I'm not.
shop that I can afford to operate also.
Yeah, and there's a lot of I think there's a lot of people that do that. A lot of artists, craftspeople, musicians, painters, whatever that it used to be, yeah, and probably still is more affordable than living in the city, but you could take your skill or your craft or your trade up there and live a pretty nice life.
Yeah.
you know.
You're from New York, right?
Yeah, I'm from Long Island, which is like its own weird universe.
But it's New York.
Yeah. It's it's a weird place, man. It's I like growing up there. The more time I spend elsewhere, I realize how kind of unique and cool it is because it's suburban residential for the most part. Um, but you know, you have miles and miles of beachfront, which is really cool. You know, you don't get that in most places.
It's, it's almost all beachfront.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, actually, where I grew up is like the dead center middle of Long Island. We were not a beach family. We didn't surf. We didn't have, you know, any kind of beach vibe at all. I grew up in the middle of Nassau County, like just 20, 30 minutes away from the city. So when I was a teenager and stuff, we would just hop the train, go to the city kind of thing. We weren't really
Yeah.
like going down to the beach and doing that whole thing. I did that later, which is amazing. And whenever I go back to Long Island in the summer, that's really what I want to do now. But yeah.
For folks who are listening who have never been to New York, people think of Long Island and they immediately think of like Long Island, right? And but for the record, Long Island is huge. It's bigger than Delaware.
Yeah, it's big. I mean,
It's sizable.
yeah, I think there's something like 2 or 3 million people that live there. I mean, it's pretty densely populated, maybe more. I don't even know, but
How long does it take to get all the way out? What is the fancy pants town where people go and vacation out at the very tip?
well, there's Montauk, and then
Montauk.
there's
What? It's like 2.5 hours for to the city from there.
yeah, without traffic because once you
Yeah.
get past a certain point, it's like a 2 lane road and you can go like 35 miles an hour. So you
Right.
know, and in the summertime, you don't want to get stuck out there on like a Sunday afternoon or,
Or a
you know, a Friday
Friday.
afternoon. Like, forget it. It's crazy. And like 99% of Long Islanders never go out there. And the
Right.
same thing with the Hamptons and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's very
Um,
expensive.
yeah,
Also,
it's Long Island's weird like that, man. And they'll have there's probably, you know, plenty of 1% type people that live out there. I mean, it's some of the most expensive real estate in the country, but you know, there's also just plenty of normal ass working class people, like
sure.
you know, like my parents were and like all my friends are. And it's not the easiest place to, you know, be working class and or middle class, whatever that means
Most
anymore.
of New
So
York is not.
right. But you know, uh I still am very I've lived there pretty much all my life on and off, and now I've been in Chicago for a little less than a year and really enjoying it. And it makes me kind of appreciate the good things about New York and Long Island. And you know, yeah, well, when you get some distance from where you grow up, that's kind of a good thing. I'm finding anyway.
You you weren't living on Long Island right up to the moment that you left, were you?
I was, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I thought that you were in Brooklyn or something.
No, my wife and I never really did that. I started working at Korg, and their offices are on Long Island, and she had a pretty good gig on the island too. And all of our friends like up and moved to, you know, Brooklyn or Queens and stuff. And we'd spent a lot of time hanging out there and going to clubs and bars and hanging parties, blah, 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 all this stuff. But I have family that's lived there for a very long time in Brooklyn. But we never moved there ourselves, mostly because I guess my gig, you know, at Korg was what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to spend 2 hours in the car every day. And then until we moved to Chicago, my wife started working for a different company, and she was commuting into Manhattan. And then COVID happened. If had COVID not happened and we stayed in New York, we probably would have moved at that point because her commute
Right.
was getting to her. So
And getting to Woodstock is a lot easier from the city than Long Island as well,
yeah,
which you were doing at the time.
I was driving up to Woodstock, yeah, weekly.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh, I used to drive right past on my way out to one of those fancy towns out there. Harbor, something Harbor. What is that?
Harbor, um, head of the harbor, maybe, or something
It's
like that.
all
Or
the way out there. I had a customer out there. Um, but I said I would drive past the Korg office, and I'd always think, one of these days I'm just going to stop there. And then I thought, what kind of an asshole just stops at a big corporate office to say
yeah, people
hello?
used to do that occasionally. Actually, my someone who works for us now at one of my good friends and someone I've worked with a long time now, Taylor, who does all our sales and artist relations for Spectre. I think he did that. I think he just popped in one day with a resume and was like, "Hey, I'm a drummer. I used to be in a band. I used to own my own studio, and now I want to work here."
And they were like, cool, kid, let's go. Wow, maybe I could have scored a job.
Could have. Who knows?
Is Zoom out there on Long Island also?
Yeah, they're a little further east than us,
Yeah,
but it's probably like, I don't know, 15, 20 miles or something east. It's or maybe even less. It's like a 20-minute ride.
yeah. I
Yeah.
I I think
Sam
I drove.
Ash's corporate headquarters are out there. D'Addario's right down the street
Oh, for
from
some reason
Korg.
I thought that they were in New Jersey, but no.
No, they're on Long Island. They're like, like I said, they're the next town over from Korg. It's you could, where I go used to go on my lunch breaks is like right behind where D'Addario is.
Are these all companies that started in the city that were like, we gotta we gotta move slightly out of the city where operations are a little more affordable?
I mean, in the case of Sam Ash, I would say, yeah, that's probably right. I think they probably started in Brooklyn or Queens. I don't really know that much about Zoom. Um, there were a lot of folks that worked at Zoom that wound up working for Korg in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. I think Zoom was owned by Sam Ash and then was bought by someone else. And so that's that story. I think Dario just generations deep of like Long Islanders at this point, you
Right.
know. And Korg, there's if you want to do industry, I think in New York. So to your point, you probably want to get a little bit far outside of the city. And Long Island is one of the
Tell
few
Mike
places.
Matthews that.
Yeah, right. Except for him. But I think there was probably just no other option if you wanted to be in New York. You know, Korg just kind of happened to be there because so Korg is obviously a Japanese company, and they were distributed by Unicord. And so like the Univox brand and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Unicord also distributed Marshall and a bunch of other stuff at the time.
Right. In the
And
through the 90s, right?
we had Marshall up until 2010, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when Korg decided to set up their own thing and leave Unicord, they were just like, well, we're on Long Island anyway, so just stay here. They brought some people over that were already working for them, and that was it. So
Let's talk about how you ended up there. What did your folks do? Did you live in a musical house?
um no, yeah, yes and no. I mean, my dad had guitars around, but he wasn't really a guitar player. He knew some chords and occasionally would bang out, a couple 3-chord songs or whatever.
What
He
was he into?
my dad used to DJ parties, so that was like really where the music in my house came from for sure. So because he was DJing parties, he actually had like, I mean, this was CD era. Like I remember records when I was real young, and then he sold all his LPs and invested in CDs. Probably close to 1,000 CDs of everything,
Right.
which was really cool. And but a lot of it was like party music because he was DJing. But that's where I learned about like James Brown and Staple singers and like all that kind of stuff, which was really
Yeah.
cool. I get
Did he have a
he
big
was
sound
born.
system too?
Yeah, I always grew up with good stereos too, which is I still have some pretty good stereo stuff, which I cherish.
Yeah.
Actually, this I don't know if you can see it. This receiver behind me, that was his, which is like an old Luxman Japanese hi-fi, which sounds pretty good.
Wow. Nice.
Um, yeah, so I'd say that was really the music in my house was really coming through his collection. he was
Right.
born in 1950, so he's like very much, he was 14 when the Beatles hit. Like he was very much like, classic rock,
Right.
saw Zeppelin at the Fillmore East, that whole kind of vibe. So he was definitely
Wow.
like a rocker. Um, he was a plumber by trade, so, and my mom's a hairdresser.
Hmm.
So, and that was it, Long Islanders.
Yeah. What do you remember the first thing that got like? I mean, it sounds like there was just always music happening, and he was a music lover.
Yeah,
Were you always drawn to like? Were you attracted to the music he was playing, or?
yeah, definitely. I remember there was always a guitar around, and I still have this old Gibson archtop that he would, have around just on a stand all the time. I never really
He
remember.
just had some old beater Gibson
Yeah.
archtop.
Yeah, because he found it on a plumbing job,
Right.
and he had guitars as a kid and then got rid of them and blah blah blah. But he always had this guitar on a stand in his bedroom, which I never really even saw him play, but it was just around. So I'd always just kind of be like, "What is that?" And go by and pluck the strings or whatever.
Yeah.
And then as a really young kid, I don't even really remember this, but like my family would tell me that I was really into like the B-52s. Like when
Uh
Love
huh.
Shack came out, like that was my
Yeah.
jam as like, whatever, however old I was, 4 years old or something like
Whatever
that.
the tempo of that, it's just like super easily digestible. That's a great song.
Oh yeah, dude. To this day, actually, we just had it on the other day. It was my wife's birthday, and it was like, it's it's a fucking ass beat of a song. I love that song. So
It's incredible.
yeah, I remember that, and then I remember Beatles stuff. I remember like hearing Rubber Soul in my dad's car. I remember that. I also remember
Yeah.
he was also big into like Steely Dan, Supertramp, stuff like that, which I still get into. And that, and then there was the guitar was around. So when I was like 8 or 9 or however old I was like, I want to learn how to play this thing.
Did he go through a Pink Floyd phase, or was that too?
No, he's
Uh,
yeah, definitely had Floyd. He told me my dad passed when I was pretty young, but he did tell me about seeing the Wall tour at the Nassau Coliseum. When they built the wall on stage and the whole flew the
right.
plane from the back and all that, of the arena and all that stuff.
Wow.
So he was a music head for sure. I
Yeah.
just thought that everybody's parents were like that though, like like just
Right. When
talking
you went
music.
to your friends' houses and they were like, and it wasn't, they didn't really care about music. Was that weird? Wouldn't be weird if they had a game system, I guess.
Yeah, no, I guess it was. I guess I was kind of lucky thinking back on it because I had good friends at that time. We were all like kind of into. I mean, MTV was on. We were super. It was the '90s, so we were super into the music that was happening. Nirvana, Radiohead, whatever, guitar music of that era. Um, and my friend, we were like starting little shitty garage bands even when we were like 9, 10 years old. And so I think it was just kind of cool to like guitar music, cool to like bands at that time.
Right.
And yeah, luckily found some friends that we all wanted to play guitar, you know.
You weren't one of the ones that got relegated to the bass.
I fought that tooth and nail.
Not that many kids are like, I'm a bass player.
I know, and there was a moment where I distinctly remember this being like one of the crappy little 13-year-old bands that we had were just like, well, he wants to play guitar and he's writing the tune, so like you could play bass. And I was like, no, I'm just going to start my own band because I don't want to play bass. But I think about that moment, like if I would have became the bass player, like I probably would have been in a lot more cool bands as a bass player.
There are a lot of opportunities, I
Yeah,
hear.
right.
What was your first guitar? Did your folks get you your first guitar?
Yeah, I had, well, my first guitar, so I grew up with some of my older cousins living in my house too. And my older cousin Michelle, she had a Lotus Strat copy
Yeah.
which was, I don't even remember that brand, but I think they were like Korean or something.
Back before
Uh,
Korean guitars were built really well.
yeah, or maybe Chinese. Who know? It was like a green. No, it was like a gray Strat with like, I think it had a humbucker, and then so she gave me that, and then the first real quote unquote real guitar I got was actually a Jackson guitar, because again it was like 90s. I was into heavy music and had a Floyd Rose, and that was super cool at the time. Still
And
is
in the
cool.
90s, you could kind of, there became a point where you could get a Jackson, especially one of the import ones, for pretty cheap.
Yeah, I
People were
think
like,
mine
I don't
was
want these things. We want these crappy old 70s Fenders that aren't worth anything
right.
because of Kurt Cobain, right?
Yeah. It was funny because I liked that kind of music, but I think my guitar teacher at the time, he was totally into like heavier music, and he had ESPs and Jacksons, and so he was like, got to get a Floyd Rose, you got to have like skinny neck, 24 frets, the whole thing. Um, but looking back, I wish I still had that guitar because it was cool. It was just like a Jackson, whatever they called it, soloist, or
Soloist.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess it was one of their import ones. I don't know where they were making them at the time, but it wasn't like a crazy expensive guitar, but it was cool.
I had one of those. It was called a Performer, I believe.
Yeah, maybe that was when it was all black, two humbuckers, Floyd.
I had either a Performer or a Professional. I don't
Yeah, I don't know.
remember.
I've not really. Every once in a while, I do get the urge though to get like one of those shredder guitars, and just like you know,
Yeah, dude.
turn the gain all the way up and just go for it.
Does Korg have a shred guitar line? They don't, huh?
No, no, we don't have any. Well, we own Spectre, which is what I do, and we don't have an electric guitar. Well, Vox makes some electric guitars, but we don't have an electric guitar line.
Gotta fix that.
I know, man. I wish we had. There's so much cool stuff being made out there too. I just, yeah, I wish we could pick something up. It would be awesome.
So, what was your first serious band? So you kind of stumble through. You're like, I'm not playing the stupid bass. That's for simple people. I shred. Just ask my Jackson. And so did you start a band? You probably started a lot of bands.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many little. We were just into punk bands, doing punk stuff, and then that led into like us getting into hardcore, and I don't know. That was all through like teenage years, and you'd play one show and break up, kind of thing. And then when I was like 19, I had this band called Sleepwall that put a couple records out, um, that didn't do much of anything, but a couple tours, a couple EP 7 inches made its way out there. And then I did another band that was called Polygon that never really, good songs, but never really, we had a really good demo, and we did an EP, and then we were supposed to do a record that never happened. And now then I'm just doing the band that I do now. But I've never really had any kind of real career or any success playing in bands. It's always just been for fun. Um,
Did you go to school?
yeah, I went to community college, and then I went to Queens College to finish my degree. I majored in English. I thought I was going to be a teacher, and then I got a job at Korg working in the warehouse, and I was like, well, at that time it was like the height of financial crisis when I was graduating college, and I was like, well, no one's hiring. I've got a job. It's for Korg. I'm making shit money literally putting amps in boxes, but I can maybe parlay this into something. So I spent like those parts of my 20s where I would have really been going for it with the band. I just decided I'm going to stick it out and try to make this Korg thing, happen.
It seems like it's working for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Uh,
I've been there almost 12 years, which is crazy to think about. But yeah,
that's a long. I don't think I've done anything for 12 years.
you know, I've been in a
Uh,
relationship for 13 or 12 years, and I've been with the same company for 12 years. So I guess I'm a loyal guy.
you're great. I'm having some weird Wi-Fi issue where I'm having a little bit of freezing. So the good news
Yeah,
is
me
because
too.
the recording is local, we'll have in our interaction a little bit of jitteriness, but the recording will be smooth and they'll sync up still. So,
If I switch to a different Wi-Fi network, will that fuck everything up or no?
uh, I don't know. Do you have a
Uh,
better one? Did you start me off with the JV squad?
I realized that for some reason my computer connected to like directly to the router and not to like the fancy Google Wi-Fi that I have.
Oh, um, well, why don't we do this? Let's stop and then we'll just start again. I'll just do a part two and I'll
Okay.
splice them together.
All right, cool.
All right. All right. Mucho más better.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, not a big deal at all. So, you're Mr. Commitment. We left off at you are Mr.
Yeah,
Commitment.
I guess so. I didn't realize this was going to be a therapy session, but hey, you know what? I'll take it.
Serial committer.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I've had the same friends since I was, a kid. And no, but anyway, I mean, I was lucky cuz I was working at a guitar shop for basically since I was like 15 up until my early mid 20s, and I would always see the guys that work for Fender or Gibson or whoever, D'Addario or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
They come the reps, and they'd just be like, "Well, it's like I want that job." Like they get to go to guitar stores every day,
All the guitar stores.
all of them, see all the gear, talk to the people, and so I don't know. I was kind of I was in college, but not really giving a shit. I was always doing. I was always good at school. Like I wouldn't say that I'm an intelligent guy, but I figured out school. Like I can memorize shit and regurgitate it, and so I always made good grades and stuff. And so I was just going to school, not really knowing what I was doing, working at the guitar shop, and then my friend Anthony, who plays drums in some cool hardcore bands and stuff, he was like, "Hey, I'm working at Korg in the warehouse. They need somebody in service, literally to do the refurb stuff and pack shit up and do QC and whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, let me do it." And it was part time. So I was part time there, part time at the guitar store. Well, full time at the guitar store, and then part time at Korg because I didn't really want to go back to school to get my English teaching degree or take some crappy, entry level gig that I couldn't get anyway. So that's how I got in with Korg. And luckily, they're like 20 minutes down the road from where I grew up.
Right.
So it was just kind of fell into place.
In an alternate universe, if you would have finished your English degree and become a teacher, did you have like a fantasy scenario of what you would be doing? Like, I want to teach advanced placement to high schoolers, or I
Yeah,
want to teach.
I wanted to be like the teacher I had in 11th grade who was cool, who was into good music and art and cool movies and would, literally put on like Mr. Bungle before the class started, or like some
Right.
weird obscure Japanese hardcore band for everyone to listen to before he did his lesson and talk to kids that were interested in,
You had an
I don't
English
know.
teacher that would play like Melt Banana or like the Boredoms?
Literally actually was Melt Banana, and then I gave him this 7-inch of this band called Razor's Edge and another band called Jelly Roll Rockheads, who are these two really cool Japanese hardcore bands that I was into in high school. And that's how like I was talking to him and I was like, this guy rocks. Like I want to be him. Probably
So
makes an okay
he's
living.
into experimental noise rock.
Yeah, he had a band called Controlled Bleeding, which are like kind of an industrial experimental band in the 80s and 90s. I
Uh-huh.
never really, honestly, I'll be honest, I never really listened to him or got into them, but he knew his shit, He was a New York dude, like super just avant-garde, played guitar, but like alternate tunings, you know, like super loud, you know, like just a
Yeah.
cool dude.
I saw Melt Banana a couple times.
Oh, really?
They opened up for Mr. Bungle
Oh, okay.
on the Disco Volante tour, which
Was that
was
the most recent thing that they did?
that was the second album,
Oh, okay.
which was a massive departure from the first album.
You
I
know,
was super into it.
I'm not a
People,
bungle guy either, but I just, you know, it's one of those bands, you know, that like when you
right,
hear when you're 16, you're like, what? You know, you can do this? You know, this is,
right,
you know,
like they do that with instruments.
right. It's
um,
crazy.
and so you wanted to be the person who made a difference in the same way.
Yeah, I just thought like if I have to grow up and get a job and, you know, support myself, like I that guy changed my life in the way that you could be a cool adult, you know, like,
Right.
and so that was like my only frame of reference for that. It was like be in a band or do that, you know, like the thought of like getting a corporate gig or like, you know, like my brother's an accountant, which is amazing. And he actually really enjoys it, but that never occurred to me ever that
Let
I
me
would do
ask you
that.
this. Has your idea of what a cool adult is changed, or is it still exactly the same?
Wow, I never really thought about that.
Because my idea of what a cool adult is hasn't changed at all, but I have a it's my perspective on that person has changed,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it's kind of the same, you know. I think it's kind of the same that like you don't have to hit a certain age and be a certain way, you know, like you have to present yourself in some way that you don't want to do it or do some, you know, operate in a world that you're like totally uncomfortable, you know. It's kind
Right.
of like your terms, whatever they wind up being, and everyone's got to compromise a little bit, you know, but at the end of the day, like I've been reason why I stuck it out with Korg is because I realized like, well, if I can make a career here, like doing something I like, you know, at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna like
Yeah.
go work for an insurance company and then like I could never do that. I don't. It just my brain wouldn't work that way. So
No, that sounds terrible.
I think it's the same thing. You know, like you've been in the industry and played in bands, and it's just like certain personalities. Like you're not gonna you're not gonna go apply for a job at the bank. You're just gonna figure out something that's cooler.
Right. People at the bank figure or like find out that you are in a punk band, and they're gonna be like giving you UAs and stuff. Oh,
Right.
I don't know. They're gonna be looking at you different.
Yeah.
Like,
I
what's
guess.
wrong with John? Has he been acting weird lately? I don't know.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're like, all I wanted was a Pepsi.
Right, that's all I ever wanted. Now I want a sparkling water. That's all
Right.
I want.
That's all everyone wants is a sparkling, lightly flavored, unsweetened water
Zero
beverage.
calorie, no caffeine.
Yeah.
Just some bubbles.
Yeah. Give me a little spark. Um, so how long were you doing the 2 gig thing? Like when you got your bump up at Korg to whatever your next position was, is that when you left the guitar store?
Yeah, pretty much. I remember now. Yeah, so I was working in the morning at Korg because I could do my shift at the guitar shop from like I think did like 3 to 9, 3 to close at the guitar shop. So I'd work Korg like 8 to 12 or something like that, and then
Wow.
yeah, but I don't know how many other. I had nothing else going on, you know. So
You're dedicated.
and I liked both jobs, you know. And
Right.
in another alternate reality, I would have stayed at the guitar shop and maybe tried to buy my way in, you know, and do that because that's also a cool job, you know. So that lasted. I don't. It didn't last all that long. Maybe 2 years. before I was able to. I just started showing up at Korg every day, even when I was a part timer, until they hired me full time. Essentially, I remember sitting down with my old boss and being like, "Hey, you've worked too many hours this year already, so we either have
And
to
it's
let you
March.
go or make you, yeah, exactly, or make you full time." And I was like, "Well, don't fire me. See if you can get me full time."
And so, did you just have that position full time, or did they they see your dedication and they were like, let's give this kid some more responsibility and see how he handles it?
Not at first. It was just the same gig.
Yeah,
Um, but I just started seeing things, finding ways to weasel my way in. I was in the service department,
right.
which and you know this from working where you've been, but like not everything that ships out the warehouse is 100%.
It's
There's such thing as,
impossible.
yeah, right. So we were basically, our department was determining what could be sold as B stock and what could not be sold at all. And there was like little things there because it was a small department. And it was just like, well, if it didn't meet a certain threshold, they wouldn't even bother to look at it. And I was like, well, this stuff's still probably pretty good, and maybe we could pull some B stock out of this pile. So I just started doing that and kind of teaching myself how to troubleshoot and fix electronics. And without going into detail, unfortunately for Korg, but fortunately for me, there was an issue with one of the keyboards where they had to do a pretty extensive job on them before we could ship them.
Which is a bad scene. Like, for anyone wondering about anyone who is on a forum griping about pricing, about like, this thing is made in China, why does it cost? A lot of things happen.
Yeah, for
Things
sure.
cost a lot of money to make, and then to sell them,
Yeah.
you have to be able to stay in business.
Right. So we had to salvage like this whole container shipment of, I can't go into detail about it, but that's what got me my full-time job, was like, hey, I could do that. Just show me how to do it.
The whole container was one particular keyboard.
Right.
That sucks. But that was
They all,
probably
they were
months.
perfectly fine when they left the DC, the distribution center, but we needed to mod them essentially. It happens all the time, but not just
Yeah,
any brand, any product, period.
right.
Refrigerators, it shows
Anything.
up, oh shit, this part doesn't work the way that we thought it did. We got to
Right.
put this part in it.
We got to swap this capacitor, or we
Right.
have to. This tube socket is whatever.
Yeah, so that's how I got in, and it was just, and then through that way, I would just kind of annoy all the technicians all day. And the manager of the department, he had been a technician at Korg for like 40, 50 years. So he learned how to do the job, like working on like plexis and JMPs and shit, which is
Wow.
awesome. Yeah. So I learned a lot from those three guys in a very short period of time. And then, so that's when they gave me a full-time job as like a junior tech. And I would literally just open up amps and keyboards all day and try to figure out what was wrong with them, and then fix them somehow and replace parts. And if they couldn't be fixed, strip parts and blah, 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 and then pack them up in a box. And then off they would go to whatever music store, and I did that for like 3 or 4 years. Something like
Can I
that.
hit pause really quick?
Sure.
What there? There's a particular trait that most techs have, that they possess.
Mm-hmm.
Where they will over-explain the diagnostic sort of resolve of whatever the problem was. And
Yeah.
it carries through to every aspect of their life. But I have not, in our interactions, I haven't recognized that in you.
Just because I'm not a real tech. Because
I bet you were pretty good, though.
I just faked it though. Like I really did. Like I learned enough to get them, and especially now, like I couldn't hack it on a real piece of gear that's hand wired or whatever, like on a turret board and has real, but with a modern amp or a modern keyboard or anything, synthesizer, whatever, it's you learn how to signal trace, and then you learn where the problem is, and 9 times out of 10, you're just like, okay, I'm going to desolder this circuit board and wire in a new one. So I couldn't build you a pedal, I couldn't build you an amp, but like I could tell you what's wrong with your amp and not necessarily how to fix it
I can
unless
tell
we
you
had
what's
it.
wrong with your amp too, Buster. Sounds like crap. Uh,
You know. So and then again in the other alternate universe of my life, I probably would have learned how to do that and been like, the cranky old amp tech that was like,
chain
if it has a
smoking.
master volume, it sucks.
Right. uh, I love that. I think everything is true. If it has a master volume, it sucks for sure. If it has 3 master volumes, it definitely sucks.
Yeah,
But
it triple
also,
sucks for sure.
but I also love a master volume.
Listen, yeah. There's nothing worse than not having a master volume when you need it, and
Right.
then your amp just sounds real bad if it's on 2 and it's a 100-watt amp with no master volume.
What's your main amp that you use in your band?
I really am particular to 50-watt JCM 800s, the
Yeah,
2204s.
Single channel.
Single channel, yeah.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I have one, and the bass player in my band, he has one. So we have like 2 in the band. And
He plays
then
his bass through one.
no, he's a guitar. He was a guitar player, so he has. We just have like 2 that we have access to.
Yeah.
They're both around the same years. Like if you talk to the forum guys, or whatever. Like the year that I have is not a desirable one. It's horizontal inputs with the pots wired to the board, blah blah blah. But it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And then actually, the other guitar player in our band has a dual channel 50-watt 800 that it's not my particular flavor, but he makes it sound great. So I think those amps are awesome.
Have you looked at them on Reverb lately?
I'm afraid to. I mean, I got mine for so cheap. I think $600 or something like that.
Yeah, I've only owned one JCM 800, and I got mine. I traded it for an ESP LTD, a 5150 that I bought for $150 at a pawn shop, and $100 cash. So essentially, I got it for $250.
There you go.
But I don't have it anymore, and I'm real pissed about it. I wish I still had it, especially now that I have one of those aux boxes.
Oh, dude, that thing is life changing. I think that's like the coolest piece of gear to come out in a very long time. That thing is amazing. And now, yeah, you can use your 50 and 100-watt amps, and they sound better through that thing. It's crazy.
Better than modelers for sure, easily.
100%. But the modeler thing's getting there. My friend Doug owns this company. Actually, I'm plugged into it right now. It's this quad cortex neural DSP thing.
That's the one I'm jealous about.
Dude, this thing fucking smokes, man. It kicks ass. And it's not only like the super high gain. It does the metal thing like better than anything, but it's the first one I've heard that, can really nail like, again, like a non-master volume plexi sound, or
This
an
is
EC30
probably
sound.
not the place to say it, but I used one of those things and used like a dimed AC30 sound. And I've owned a couple AC30s and recorded with some old vintage AC30s, and it sounded great.
Yeah, they're really good, man.
I don't want to nick any AC30 sales, though.
No, it's okay. I don't think you will. It's only going to get better though, too, man. I mean, the Oxbox, the Quad Cortex, like, it's only getting better, and it's already there. And by the time you record with it, master it, stream it somewhere, like, forget it. Like, the nuance is completely lost. I guess live, if you're not playing a certain type of gig where you have a sound guy or, front of house or whatever, then that's probably not good, but you still, like, crappy gigs that I play for like 100 people, I would not use it. I would just use a regular amp. But if I was playing theaters every night and had a front of house guy that, there's a lot to be said for like the convenience of it too.
I want one of those quad cortex.
They're pretty badass.
Is that what you're using to record?
Yeah, I'm not a big home recording guy. I mean, during COVID, I've had kind of no choice but to like do demos and stuff that way. But I had a UA interface, but I just sold it and I use the quad cortex for everything.
Because you're not doing any vocals.
I have this thing going through it right now. I mean, it's probably not perfect, but it works.
Oh, you're using the quad cortex as your audio interface.
Right. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I'm so low tech when it comes to this stuff that it makes it simple.
Right.
Awesome.
I
can open up a session in GarageBand and all the sounds on the quad cortex just go on the computer, and so
easy peasy.
Easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doug's a good friend to have.
He's a great guy. Yeah, I hooked him. We're not like super tight, but I did hook him up, sideways through meeting at NAMM shows and stuff and getting Dark Glass, his other company, hooked up with Korg, and that was really cool. I met him in where the fuck were we? Prague, because we do some Spectre manufacturing out in the Czech Republic. And I met him at Prague at an absinthe bar and introduced him to the vice president of sales at the time for Korg USA. That's how they got the Dark Glass deal done.
Dark Glass is European?
They're from Finland, yeah.
Oh. And and does Korg distribute in the States?
Yeah, we distribute Dark Glass in the States.
Is there electronics? Are there electronics going into any Spectre bases?
Yeah, we have them we have them in a couple of the Euro models that we do. We have a model called the Euro LT that has a tone capsule in it, and the tone capsule is kind of like our Spectre flavor. It's been modified a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we do, in our custom shop, you can get anything you want essentially, and we do a lot of Dark Glass in the custom shop. And
we're skipping forward a little bit, but when I got to visit the shop there, when I came out to meet you, and you generously loaned me a bass to do that Red Hot Chili Peppers video. Then that bass is awesome. At first, I was like, it's pretty trippy looking, all the colors and all of the figuring and everything. But I grew to really like appreciate it, and it played amazing. But that is the custom shop there, and I just saw like just some of the most incredible instruments in various states. Like in the finishing room, those guys were very friendly, showing off whatever it was that they were working on. Everyone there is excited about what they're working on.
Yeah, man, it's been, I think, definitely the most rewarding, coolest thing I've ever been a part of, for sure. And to be able to do that, manufacture at that really high level where, everything is quality. You're not, it's on our terms. The woods that we want to use, the components that we want to use, how we want to build them, the people we get to work with, all the builders at the shop. It's so cool because, my past lives at Korg and working with the many brands that we have, like, a gear, like, products just show up on a truck and they're in boxes, and we sell them, and that's all good. It's seeing everything happen from nothing, from concept to completion, like seeing all the steps in between has been, it's been really, really cool. And to be able to kind of foster that, because, Stuart Spector, the guy who made the company, we bought it from him, and he had an operation up there in Woodstock for, probably since the mid 90s. And, when the word got out in the bass community that, Spectre being bought by Korg, I bet the first thing they do is close the custom shop because that doesn't make any money, and
Right.
blah blah blah. Right? Move everything to China. Um, it was a complete opposite, and it was like something that we said was like, wow, this is like we got to grow this. We got to foster this. This is where the innovation is going to happen. This is where like the new great idea for the next Spectre instrument's going to happen here. These are the guys that we need, the people that we need to have. So the shop that you came to, we were only opened the doors in that a few months prior to when you showed up there.
Right.
That was a brand new shop, not a brand new building, but we bought a building near Woodstock, and we're still expanding it now. We're building a whole. We're about finished with another shop expansion, brand new spray booth. The whole nine. So it's been really cool.
I imagine, and I was thinking this as I drove away the first time. What an incredible space for that small group of folks to get to build and finish these instruments, but also where the building is, it's beautiful. So you walk outside, you're you're not stepping in dog shit like on a sidewalk in Brooklyn or whatever, or human shit. You're like you would in Times Square or somewhere else, but or anywhere in San Francisco.
Right.
Maybe you'll step in deer shit, which
Yeah.
is
Or hopefully not bear shit, but
hopefully not. But it's beautiful. It's so amazing. Anyone that hasn't been up to that area, to the Catskills and to the
yeah.
Hudson Valley, really owes it to themselves. And so I imagine that's kind of that's a feels more inspiring because it's more relaxing. It's a more relaxing environment to do creative things. There's a
I
reason that a
believe
lot of
that.
amazing musicians went to record their records up in Woodstock, right?
Yeah, totally. I think there's a totally a vibe up there. I mean, the name is so popular because of the festival. I really think it has nothing to do with the festival at all. I think it's really what you described is like the surroundings. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Every season there is really, it's a beautiful place to be.
Summer's a little hot.
It's livable. It's clean, fresh air. The whole thing.
Yeah.
And then of course, space and just not the environment of a city, but knowing you're in New York, knowing you're in the Hudson Valley, knowing that there's so much creativity around, and yeah, I think it's definitely part of it. And again, the people, I'm jealous of the kind of mindset that the folks that work up at the shop. They're so much more, they're just in tune to that. They're craftspeople, which is awesome.
So we skipped forward quite a bit there.
Yeah.
You are fixing things that show up and need a little bit of fixing.
Yeah. So I was doing that for a few years. Same kind of vibe as how do I do something else here? I know that this is a cool company. I'm a musician. I like gear. I don't want to go work for Geico. So like, what else can I do? And they were hiring for a product management position. And I just threw my name in the hat and interviewed for it. And I got that opportunity to take that job, which was kind of the other side of the, like, it's so funny. They would always say like, you either work in the back or you work up front. And it's like, especially when Korg was like in a different era, it was just like, there's the upfront people and the back people. So it's like you cross over to the upfront, whereas like you're in jeans and boots and stuff working in the tech room. And then I got to wear like, khakis or whatever to work up front.
Or the embroidered work shirt, right?
Yeah,
The,
exactly.
The
But that was a
NAMM
huge
shirt.
the NAMM shirt with the zipper instead of the buttons, so that was huge for me because that was like, okay, now I get to go to a NAMM show, and now I'm working yeah, I'm working in a cubicle, but I'm in contact now as a product manager. We're just a distributor, but I'm the interface between wherever this stuff is being made and before it gets into the country, into our market. So, and Korg has awesome brands, so I got to get hands on with Vox amps and Black Star amps, and we were working with Ashdown bass amps for a while, and I learned a lot from those guys, and all kinds of stuff over the years. So that was
And
like
you
the
had a
next
pretty
step.
intimate relationship with a lot of the gear that was coming through because, I mean, I know people who work for companies doing artist stuff and
Hmm.
product specialist stuff, and they don't even know they don't know their full line. They don't know
Right.
their line,
Yeah.
which is incredible to me.
Yeah, it depends on what we have artists, we have a really great artist team at Korg, and it just comes down to who you're working with. So
Right.
like, you don't have to know about the tuners really. You have to know about the cool new keyboard, that you want Herbie Hancock to play or whatever.
Right.
So,
Also, if you only deal with keyboardists, you don't need to know about the new tuner,
right.
right?
Yeah, I guess so. I think they've got that figured out now. At least they should.
I hope so. Oh, it's a little out of tune. Just hit the
Yeah,
tone bar.
that's it, baby. Wiggle the tone bar.
And
Um,
so you
yeah.
start going to NAMM shows. What's your first NAMM show? And
My
tell me
first
about your
knit.
experience, because it's
Yeah.
not glamorous. It's fun and it's exciting, but it's overwhelming.
Oh, dude, it's in these last couple years that we haven't had them. I realized how like insane they really are. My first one, I can't really remember what year it was now, but it was probably about 10 years ago, and so yeah, maybe 2012, something like that. I don't know. I was just excited to be there because I'm just a gear nerd anyway, and but you quickly realize that that's not what you're there to do, right? You're not there to like stroll the convention floor and like go plug into all the pedals and blah blah blah, right?
Right.
So, and I
Not
got
only are you
like,
not there to do that, you probably don't have the opportunity to do that.
no, definitely not. So my my very first name show, and it's been the tradition every year, is that like I am there um before there's a show. I'm there when the show before the NAMM show is wrapping up. So when we get in there, there's nothing. There's
Right.
just a bare concrete floor, and there's a bunch of union work guys running around just screaming at you and don't get in the way and blah blah blah, right?
Don't plug things in yourself or we're going to
Right. No,
prod
there's
you.
not even anything to plug into at that point. I mean, they
Right.
haven't even dropped the electricity yet, so there's guys up in the scaffolding making electrical drops. They're rolling out carpet. They're taping off, whose booth is where. So it's like very, very fundamental. And then over the next 4 to 5 days, it becomes an AM show. And
It's
then
crazy to
you
see the
get, yeah.
transformation too, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and I'm really grateful for that too. Early years, I was like, man, I'm just being like abused here because I would leave home for like 2.5 weeks, be in Anaheim, like you know, nothing to do. But
Eat tacos.
yeah, basically.
Did you ever take that
um,
time to go to Disneyland for a few hours?
no, I should have, especially now that they have the Star Wars thing. I would really like to
I
check
love
that
it
out. But
so much.
we would go for like a dinner thing downtown Disney, whatever, but never been to the theme park.
I haven't
Too
been since
busy,
they
man.
opened the Star Wars thing either, which is ridiculous, but
Yeah,
you know.
next time. But anyway, I'm like, that was really cool to me because I got to see the whole thing. And then it's almost like a badge of honor, So like when the rest of the company shows up and the show's already happening and stuff, and you're just like, you have no idea. Like I built this display,
Right.
you know.
Meanwhile,
And you
5 years
get
ago they were
yeah,
doing it.
right, exactly. And you get really good hang time with all the other people in the other companies who are there early. So you meet people in other companies and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
and every year you see the same faces and it's like, hey. And that's what I miss. And that's why NAMM shows are cool, I think, is those relationships you make and the people that you see, especially people that come in from around the world, and Korg's a global company, so that we've got employees in the UK and in Italy and Japan, and you just never see those people unless you're at an amp show.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. You wear sensible shoes at NAMM, or do you wear fancy shoes?
I wear sensible shoes. You
Good
got
for
to.
you. What about the first year?
I did not, and I learned the hard way.
Do you wear Chucks, or you wear like some uh, fancy dress shoes?
Yeah, I wore like a dress shoe that was not broken in, like a brand new shoe.
Brand new pair of wingtips, I'll betcha. You were
Yeah.
trying to impress.
Well, you got to dress to impress, baby. But not at an am show. Well, you got to be.
Ugh.
You can wear some nice looking shoes, but they better be broken in, and you have to have the pair of shoes that you change into immediately after the show's over.
What did you wear? Oh yeah, for sure. You bring them in a bag. You have some
You
sneakers
got to
because
have those
you
like
don't want to walk back to your hotel in your dress
within
shoes.
20 minutes of leaving the convention center. You better be in some. It doesn't even have to be a more comfortable shoe. It just has to be a different shoe. You got to feel something different.
What'd you wear at the 2020 show? Pair of Clarks?
Yeah, I'm a Clark's, desert boot or wallaby type of guy.
That's a
I'm wearing
good move.
Crocs right now. I would love to be wearing Crocs at the NAMM show. I don't know if maybe we can make that happen.
What about this? What about like a spec? You get all this cross branding, Iron Maiden Vans,
Yeah,
blah blah blah. Spectre Crocs.
Spectre Crocs. I'm down, dude. Let's go.
You could get some faux exotic wood finishes in the sort of rubber,
Dude, now in flame maple tops on the
I think
Crocs.
so, man. I think so. Someone is listening right now and a light bulb is going off and they're
Yeah.
like, these guys are joking, but I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a 5A quilted maple veneer on my Croc, and that's
Yeah.
I should talk to PRS about this because we could probably go halvesies and look, similar kind of vibe. We like comfort. We like exotic woods. Let's go.
I can hook you up with someone over there.
we talk to John Mayer about this.
I'll send you Paul's number.
But yeah, dude, I mean, that was a different thing, and it's, I don't know, like, how interesting this is or whatever, but going to a NAMM show, being part of a company that has a strong presence in the industry, it's cool. I think it's cool. I think it's cool to be able to meet people who do the same thing for different companies. I think it's cool to be able to see the reaction to the products. I think it's cool to see what the competition's doing. I think it's all very. I feel lucky to be able to do it. It's awesome. Again, it's going back to that thing where it's like I like doing what I do and being in a job that I think is cool. This is my idea of being a cool adult, is being in a convention center.
Well, that's a part of being that's one of the things, right?
Yeah.
I don't like tying my shoes, but I like to go outside with shoes on.
You got to get some Crocs.
I guess I do. I'm really behind the curve on this Crocs thing. My wife's got some and she loves them.
Dude, I was hating on them for years. My wife has them too, and then
you got old.
Recently, actually, I was at a REI and they had Crocs and they got the fuzzy lining, and I was like, you know what? It's gonna be wintertime.
Fuzzy lining?
Yeah, man.
These are some sort of like these aren't your gardening Crocs. These are
No, you don't want to
Crocs.
get these wet. No.
Wow. I didn't know they
indoor living
expanded so much.
Yeah, that's nice.
A lot of indoor living these days.
The great indoors. Really enjoying it.
I don't want to beat up on 2020 and 2021 too much because nobody loves it except for really rich people. But some people took the time to be very productive, and there was a lot of stuff that happened for you guys in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
Tell me some good stuff. Tell me some
Good.
positive stuff because I think people need to hear that.
Yeah. Well, if you're selling guitars for a living, you're or buying guitars, or you're working at a music store or whatever, and you're able to do it safely and without, killing grandma or whatever, like it's a good time to be doing that. People are interested in what we're doing, which is really cool. Not just obviously Spectre, a very small brand, but all the big guys are selling a lot of guitars, and that's really cool. So we've been able to use some of that momentum to, like expand the custom shop and hire more people, and, really switch up what we were doing up there, and try different things, develop some new products. Spectre specifically, just rounding out the product catalog a bit, and throwing some new models out there, and seeing people react to them and being like really stoked on it too. So, um, yeah, I think those are the good things about it. Everything else sucks, but if you've been able to, yeah, if you've been able to, hunkering down, and for better or for worse, being here and working all the time. But what we're doing right now, screens and microphones and cameras, that was not part of my world. So that's made things possible. I can talk to people all over the world a lot easier now. I can, we can
Right.
strategize and plan a little bit easier now. We can do cool stuff, remotely.
And you can have controlled rollouts on products,
Totally.
not under this just sort of ridiculous, unrealistic deadline of annual NAM.
Yeah, totally. That's the bummer of NAM, is that the pressure that you feel, whether it's real or not, to have a wall of new stuff every
Right.
12 months. And that's unsustainable. It's just, no one is having a good time. Like, I'm beating up the manufacturer or the part supplier or whatever. The dealers are beating us up for new stuff. The consumer is seeing stuff they can't buy.
Which is the
It's not fun.
biggest bummer because
Yeah,
that's, sometimes by the time a product is available, people have like mentally moved on.
totally.
Someone else has had better fortune in their rollout and they're like on to that thing.
Yeah,
It's like,
totally. I mean,
oh,
that happens all the time. And
right.
now, there's less pressure to do that. Hopefully we do get together and do it the NAM thing again. But I think hopefully then, by that point we'll have abandoned some of those habits, which I just don't think are productive or good for anybody. The product itself suffers. I don't want to be rushing for
Right.
some arbitrary deadline to finish something and miss an important spec or something. Nobody wants that.
Um, I feel like we would be really irresponsible if we didn't talk about your band because you're still gigging.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks, man. I do a band. It's kind of like an alt rock, post hardcore kind of thing. The band's called Somerset Thrower. It's based out on Long Island with a bunch of my lifelong friends, and we actually did a record. It's one of these, like, we booked studio time like March of 2020, which again, not to keep bringing up the things that nobody wants to hear, but
Right.
so we did it, we recorded, and then we all went into lockdown, crazy insanity, especially because we did it in New York City and we did it in Queens, and we did it, kind of at the time when, like, it was, it was gnarly. And then, like, the rest of the year kind of just happened, and we were just like, I remember recording it and being like, all right, we'll play shows this summer, like, it'll be fun. And then, like, the summer rolled around, and we were like, all right, well, maybe,
Fall.
yeah, in the fall, and then that rolled around, and we were like, all right, well, you know what, let's just take this opportunity while, like, everything's kind of chill. There, anyone that was big or really working, unfortunately, was not There was no gigs. Not a lot of music was really pumping out like on the normal schedule like it was. And so we just talked to the labels that we work with, and we're just like, hey, can we just let's just drop this thing. Let's just put it out. Like we'll make a video and we'll just put it out and we'll get it pressed and we'll see what happens. And that was kind of good for us in a way because we're a very, very small band, in a small scene. But we caught a little wave of momentum and, did did the Spotify, pitch to the playlist and got lucky a couple times. And we sold about 1,000 copies of the record, which was cool with no gigs, just purely through the website and mail
That's
order
great.
shit, a little bit of distro too. And
I think I've had major label deals with $200,000 videos that have sold that many records.
so that's cool. I mean, and it's just like my whole like kind of the opposite of the way that I've treated my career or whatever. I hate the way that sounds, but like my life in the music industry, I look at the band as just like is pure fun. We lose money every chance we get. There's no career, whatever, no ambition. It's just fun to play guitar music with three of my friends and to have an excuse to buy new pedals and shit. That's really
I
and
think
get
that's the
together
way to
every
do
once in a
it.
while and play a show.
I mean, I think that is a true display of passion.
Yeah, I think so. We've done like really stupid shit, like not making any money. Again, just sinking all of our personal money into playing gigs, and just because we can, like
Right.
we we played not so long ago before things got a little hairy again with COVID, and we went out to eat afterwards, and that's just kind of our thing now. It's like whatever little money we get from the gig, now it just goes into paying for dinner. And so so the gig
You guys
is just an
book
excuse
shows
to like
around
go to a nice
restaurants you want to
restaurant.
eat at?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you guys, I heard about this new spot.
Yeah, pretty much. Like we have some shows coming up this month, which hopefully they happen with a really cool band called Taking Meds from Rochester, New York. But we're playing in the Midwest. We're playing Chicago, where I live now, at Subterranean, and it's like an early set time. Like we're going to be on at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we were just joking about it. It's like, well, dude, we can still get a table. Like it's all good.
That's amazing. I saw that you guys did a thing in the fall, and Kate Reddy was a guest. Um, was it a Walters thing?
Oh yeah. That's right, Kate. Yes, we did. Walter Schreifels, who
Legend.
for the uninitiated is you know one of the legends of New York City hardcore, and for me personally, like an idol in the kind of way to be a cool adult, and do really cool. His bands, Gorilla Biscuits, Quicksand, Rival Schools. They've been kind of like my touchstone for music for a long time. He does a show for Vans, like a live streaming, whatever thing in Brooklyn, where it's really focused. I think it's called New Direction, and it's all kind of focused on like hardcore adjacent, punk adjacent, whatever kind of stuff. So I don't know. I wasn't there for Kate's interview, but I know that, she's involved in the scene for a long time. I think her husband does Equal Vision Records or something like that, so he always has a cool guest on
They're
and a
my
band.
neighbors.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, no shit.
they live in my little town.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
It's so weird and crazy up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So there you go. Cool people,
Yeah.
escaping the city. But that was super cool, man. And that's again like one of the things that's just like that's just pure fun, we get to go hang out with Walter for an afternoon and play some songs and hang
How
out,
cool was it to uh, did your label pitch you to the show, or did he invite you guys personally?
He invited us personally. My friend Anthony, who I mentioned earlier, who got me the job at Korg, he plays drums in a New York hardcore band called Sheer Terror, who is, a very well known, kind of legendary New York hardcore band. And so he's in with all those guys in that scene, and he's done some stuff with Walter on the side. And when I think Walter even said this when he was doing the show, he's like, I needed to get reinitiated with like, what's new. I'm doing my own thing over here, but I'm not listening to any of these new bands. And so he hit up my friend Anthony and said, hey, who are some bands I should check out? And he
Yeah,
gave him a list of bands, and our name was on the list. So, and then like, sure enough, he reached out and was like, hey, I like what you're doing. You want to come to the show?
man, that guy's a good friend. Got you a
He's a great
gig.
friend.
Got you this. Was that the first time you met Walter?
Yeah, we had been around. I'd seen him at gigs and stuff, said what's up, but yeah, first time I met him and like, had any kind of conversations with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full circle. That must have been pretty great.
Oh, dude, I mean, without sounding like too much of a fanboy or whatever, but that his music again, like Gorilla Biscuits was a thing for me, like being young, into punk, into hardcore, having this music, like growing up with my dad's music and like this strong, like melodic, whatever sensibility, like hearing melodic hardcore or whatever you want to call it, like that was, aggressive and, but not like, I don't know,
Unmelodic.
like it was
Yeah.
approachable and fun to listen to. It wasn't like, and I love like all kinds of chaotic shit, but that was like, there was structure and like songwriting there that, this like resonated, just hit me in the back of the head. I was like, wow, this is my stuff.
Right. That's great, man.
Yeah, so it's cool.
So when are those shows?
Those shows, when are they? They are later here in January. Let me pull up my calendar.
Oh, perfect.
Um,
This we
the
call that perfect
20th.
timing.
Yeah, man. I know. We're I think we're gonna pull through with it. I was just talking to the booking agent about it. It seems like shows are happening right now. For anyone who's listening to this, it's early January.
2022.
And things are weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're the 20th through the 23rd, and we're really smart, so we're going to do Midwest shows in the middle of January and freeze to death. So if you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Chicago, Fort Wayne, Indiana, say what's up to my sales engineer at Sweetwater, and
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, come say what's up.
I love Pittsburgh.
I do too, man. Yeah, I went there for a Korg thing, doing some dealer visits. My buddy Ari and I, a couple times actually out in Pittsburgh, and I was like, Pittsburgh guitars, Empire Music, all that,
I
really good
think it's
guitar
a
shops.
cool city.
Really fucking cool.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in the winter or anything, but in the springtime, in the summertime, I was like, this is great, man. Nothing not to like.
That's right.
Yeah,
That is
I think
right.
most cities now are pretty cool. Like
Right.
I didn't really do any crazy traveling, like pre-internet, social media, whatever. But like most cities, like we're all following the same shit. Like we all like the same chefs. We all like this,
Right.
There's like-minded, cool people.
You're gonna find the comforts that
Yeah.
please you.
Most cities have a good record store and some cool restaurants and a good dive bar, and that's really all I need to be happy.
Agreed. What's your go-to road food?
Like driving, got to stop, or like
Yeah, you
eat it in the car.
oh, just generally speaking, like when you're on the road. I found that I couldn't find really great Thai food in New York.
No, you can't get Thai food in New York. Well, you can. It's not amazing. Mexican food is also not that good in New York.
Yeah. There are a couple
Um,
spots that are decent. But
couple spots, but if you go like that's what's actually been really great about living in Chicago now is that like any random Mexican spot is like way better than the best spot in New York.
which is crazy.
I know. I didn't see that coming, but I'm here for it.
How's the specialty coffee been treating you in Chicago? You have a favorite coffee spot?
Well, I do, my wife works for a coffee company. So I get a lot of coffee for free at home, but there are some really good coffee spots in Chicago. Dayglow is awesome.
Wait a minute, did we
And
talk about this? Did you can I say?
yeah, my wife works
Did,
for Blue Bottle.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I remember you
Yeah.
saying that. I
And that's why we
forgot
moved to
that.
Chicago because they're opening up in Chicago. Right now they just have one location down in River North. If anyone in Chicago is listening, go check out the cafe. It's really cool. And there may be some more. We don't really know yet, but that's why we're here. She was working for Blue Bottle in New York City, running like their highest volume stores, and then so
Does the
we came
guy who
out to.
started Blue Bottle, is he still involved?
He is, yeah. I don't want to say his name wrong. I'm not
I don't
James
even
something.
remember his
Yeah.
name, which is ridiculous. He cooked me dinner once.
Oh no shit.
Speaking of good cooks,
Yeah.
I visited San Francisco. I was interested in starting a coffee roaster and went to his spot, which was at that time just the window in the
Oh, so that was
alley
back in the day.
way back. And
Yeah.
said hello. And yeah, after a conversation, he's like, "Why don't you guys come over and we'll cook you dinner tonight?"
Oh, nice.
And it was just like that. It was incredible. And we had an incredible evening. So
I not met him. My wife's met him a handful of times. His name's James Freeman, and
that's right.
I understand that he's a legit dude. He's one of the good ones. He is still involved with the company. He's sold the company, but he's around.
Yeah,
I know that he's dropped in on several of the cafes while Jess has been working there, so he's around.
good for him. That's the
Yeah,
American
man,
dream.
it kind of is, I guess. Do
Build it
something you love and then sell it.
and then have them pay you.
Right, and then you get paid, and then
And
right,
then it's the gift that keeps on giving.
yeah, yeah. If you can stick around, and just be like, you grow it, right, and then you just do the stuff that you like to do. Let someone else pay the bills and deal with the taxes and
Uh,
that kind of bullshit.
uh so I know we skipped around a lot, but how did you end up going from being a product specialist, doing the NAM setups and that part for Korg, to essentially running Spectre? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the global brand manager for Spector, which is a title they've given me, but it's really
It
it's a
sounds
company within a
killer.
company. What's up?
Sounds killer.
Oh yeah, the business card is
Global.
nice. Worldwide. So we were a distributor for Spectre, right? Just like we were a distributor for Black Star and a bunch of other brands. And Stuart Spector wanted to sell the company because he's was not wanting, just like we just talked about.
Right.
Let someone pay you, right? So he didn't want to deal with the OEMs and the getting the right cardboard boxes and the right cases and blah blah blah, and
Tedium.
so he's over it. He's done it many times in his career. Had to start over from scratch a couple times. So he was getting to the point where he wanted to sell the company. We were distributing it, in the States anyway. So we were already doing like kind of half the work. And he worked out a deal with Core USA, to buy it. And at that time I was a product manager for Spectre and a handful of other brands. And I just got involved in it. Kind of, it's funny, like talking about it. It's like kind of the same way I did everything else. I just started showing up to all the meetings and saying, well, this is what we need to do at Spectre. Like, it's a really good brand. No one knows about it. We don't have enough inventory. We need, we need new models. We need to hit these price points, or we need to blah, blah, blah. We need more custom shop, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually they just gave me the opportunity to kind of run with it. And that was like 3 years ago. So we've done a lot, and like I mentioned, we rebuilt the custom shop, moved it, hired a bunch of new people. Um, we've, we've, I don't know, a whole bunch of new products that we've developed, a whole new marketing thing, and it's been really fun and cool because we kind of exist within the core USA company, but we're kind of like a startup in a way, I guess, where it's like we get to play with like their checkbook, but we make our own rules,
Right.
so it's kind of fun.
How I'm always curious about. I always fantasized about being a part of like making instruments, like designing or coming up with ideas. And when Spectre as a company has new products developing or coming out, how I know that not every single product is the same. They all start somewhere, but do some of those ideas come directly from you, or do they come
Yeah,
from custom shop ideas and sort of slowly pare
yeah,
themselves down to a place that is realistic on a production level?
yeah. It's kind of both, early on. I would just say that the whole entire company, it's me. I have a marketing manager. I have sales and artist relations manager. I've got an operations guy, and then we have the custom shop. So there's like, including all of the builders at the custom shop, there's like 9 or 10 of us. So it's really small.
Yeah.
And early on, and it's still early on, but that first year it was me and Taylor, who's my sales manager, and that was it. So, and plus like Stuart was kind of around, and 2 guys at the custom shop or whatever it was. So all of those product development ideas, at least for the import stuff that we were, the stuff that we build in Europe, the stuff that we build in Korea, um, that was all coming from my observations of like, okay, I've been the product manager for Spectre. I know what the brand is. I am in the industry. I'm looking at the competition. I'm looking at, my own personal, opinions and preferences for gear. And that was kind of the first step of it. Yeah. So that was coming from just basically, hey, we have this brand. It's a killer brand. I'm excited. Let's make some bases. And then more recently, we've gotten stuff that hasn't come out yet, but we've gotten involved with some proper guitar designers. As you need to do. We hired a really great guy up at the custom shop named Will, um, who is now running the entire show up there, and a lot of what we're going to be doing in the future is coming from him. He's a proper luthier guitar builder. Um, And so, I guess to answer your question in a long way, it's a little bit of both. I could get an idea and call up the factory and say, "Hey, can we do this?" And then we'll make it. Or someone at the custom shop will say, "Hey, I just built this bass with these woods, and this sounds ridiculous." Or I just used this pickup, and you really got to hear it. Or I just came up with this color, and it looks fucking crazy. Let's use it. So
Right.
it's there's a little bit of that trickle down, a lot of that actually, that kind of trickle down stuff.
How satisfying is that to you when you see something, when it goes from conversation and concept to seeing it, and then the it feels like, is it like putting a record out? Is it similar excitement?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you could definitely relate to that, or like playing a really great show, or like that feeling of like accomplishment, connection, whatever. Like that's it for me for sure. Especially with you see people on social media say like, I just got this bass, this thing kicks ass. I've never heard, my bass tone never sounded so good, or
Right.
I never, never knew that I would dig this, but I do. And that's really rewarding for sure. That's like, again, the thing, like, I wouldn't be able to do a job the way that I do this job if I wasn't getting that at the end of the day,
Right, because then you'd basically be crunching numbers at Geico.
Right.
I don't want to talk shit about Geico. They give me a great rate right now.
Happy customer, loyal to Geico.
You've been using them for 18 years, I'll bet.
Yeah, since I got my license,
You're
man.
Mr. Commitment.
That's right. Do right by me. No, but that is, it's, that's the rush. That's like the payoff. Is like whether it's one single instrument that the custom shop builds and we deliver, that was that was whoever's idea it was, but we were all stoked on it when it actually comes together, or whether it's like, a container rolls up with 300-400 bases in them, and I know that each and every single one of those is sold to someone who can't wait to get their hands on it,
right,
and play it, and and get some kind of satisfaction out of that themselves. That's awesome.
I love the idea of production instruments. I love custom, obviously. I love custom one-off guitars, and basses, but production instruments, for whatever reason, I'm fascinated by the idea. And I'm fascinated by the idea of there's a lot that goes into it, right? Like the
Totally.
process.
I mean,
I guess, yeah.
We are not building the numbers that by any means that a lot of these big companies are. We're not making as many guitars as PRS, certainly not as many as Gibson, Fender, the big guys, Schecter, ESP, those kind of things. But we are using a very similar process. And it's kind of like a balance where you want to make something that's super cool and unique, but you have to hit not hit a price point in a way that's like a negative, but you want to make it affordable. You want to make it approachable for most musicians that don't have custom shop money.
Sure.
And you want to know like the right amount of uniqueness or the right amount of cool stuff that you can put in there, but still make it familiar, So if you can have a really crazy finish, then maybe you want to stick with something that's like pretty mainstream as far as the pickups or the hardware components are, or, So it's a little bit of a balancing act. I really like what we do because we don't really do anything in those like super low price points. We're not that company. Even the stuff that we make in Korea is very, very for that segment of the market is on the higher end side. We don't make thousands of them. We make more like hundreds of them. And so we have a little bit more control there over the quality, over, if I price them a little bit higher, then I'm definitely using better cuts of wood or more pro level electronics so that when you buy it, you don't have to, swap the pickups out or anything like that. So I really like it too, man. I think and we kind of mentioned it before, but what you get now for your money is really fucking good. It's not like you're gonna get some knockoff Strat or whatever that you're gonna hate in 2 years. Like
it's kind of amazing, like that Lotus that you were talking about that you got in 1990 whatever it was, 3 or 4. Korean made instruments. All the big guys who were making instruments in Korea left. Now they're in Indonesia or in China, right?
Yeah, Indonesia's like the new hotspot for guitars for sure. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I remember when people talked shit about Japanese made instruments, and I love Japanese. I mean, I love all that stuff, Yamahas and Grecos and Ibanez, all those,
Yeah, I've seen that Yamaha that you have, and you have that kind of 335 looking one, right?
Yeah. That's a 70s one that I had refinished.
Yeah. Those are incredible guitars.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to is like Yamaha gives a shit about quality. We give a shit about quality. We're not going to put anything out there that we, subpar. And that's been really cool. And then we do a lot of manufacturing in Europe too, which is a production instrument, but we're making like 150, maybe 200 a month, which is not a lot. And we're using like still mostly the same type of materials that we would in the custom shop. It's just that you can't choose your spec. So we're taking those ideas and sending them and building them in Europe. These guys in Europe have been building instruments for decades. They're all like old world craftsman type people, and
It's a pretty
those are killer too.
unconventional path, European
Yeah.
production.
Yeah, I can't take any credit for that. That was all Stewart back in the day, but somehow landed on the, found these guys. This guy, my friend Peter over there, I think they were building like I think Hohner, like the German company was building. I don't know what that, all kinds of weird stuff over there, like marimbas and things like that, And
Right. They're sort of like the German Yamaha. They had all kinds of ensemble instruments.
Right. And they were building them out in a town, like a village, like 30 minutes outside Prague. That was like back in like before, they embraced, when they were still, I guess they were socialist nation. I don't know my history, but there was like a government owned musical instrument factory that was like cranking out Hohner stuff.
Right.
And this guy, Peter, once, they westernized or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a moron, but I don't know what the term is there. But he started a guitar company because he was like stoked on wanting to build guitars, and he knew how to do woodworking and build ensemble instruments and orchestral stuff. Somehow Peter and Stewart found each other, and they started building Spectors in like the early to mid 90s, and so we still build there today.
That's crazy that you. I mean, obviously it's good for everyone, but it's cool that relationship withstood the transition.
Yeah, that's been really important to me. And you hear stories from people. It's a small industry, and everyone likes to talk about these things. But acquisitions are always like, oh, well, you got to get it's been since pre CBS. It's
Right,
always the story, right? So
right. Pre Ernie Ball.
Right, exactly. Pre whatever, this era of Gibson, not Norlin era, or whatever. It's like I'm super hyper conscious of that, probably to a fault, but I never wanted anyone to say that you need to get a pre-Korg Spectre because they're better, or they Korg fucked them up and blah blah blah. Like, I'm very very hyper aware of that. I want to be protecting the legacy of a brand. It's somebody's name, that I've been through the weird way the world works, been like, fortunate enough to like step into this position. But like, I'm trying to protect a legacy and continue a heritage. And I don't want to be known for, I don't want to be known for cheaping out or,
right,
not doing things the right way or whatever. I don't want to be the CBS, even though I like a lot of CBS Fender products, but you know what I mean.
Nobody's talking shit about silver face Fenders anymore. That was a thing of the late 90s and 2000s. Now they all fetch a lot of money.
I know, it's crazy.
Silver face, a silver face Princeton costs you $2,000 now. Forget it.
I know, it's nuts. I wanted to buy because I used to have one, a Vibro Champ. Like the little guys with the 8-inch speakers and stuff.
I had one of those, yeah.
Yeah. And I want, because you're at home and it's kind of manageable at home and it's cool. You can get some,
Yeah.
Dude, I can't afford one of those things now. They used to be like a couple $100. They're like $1,500 now.
You know what you need to get yourself? You need to get yourself one of these satellite scamps.
Yeah, I know Adam a bit. I should hit
I
him up.
love this amp.
Yeah,
I love this amp. I have it in the in the lunchbox, and then
right.
I have the combo that I can just
Oh,
pop
cool.
it over to. Or no, actually, this is the Gamatron. This thing is like 3 watts. It's way more
Yeah,
like a champ.
right. Yeah, I knew Adam was. I have a friend that lives in San Diego who builds guitars, and I met some San Diego folks through him, and Adam was one of them. He's always been super cool to me. And again, that's one of the guys I miss seeing at an imp show.
Yeah, he's a hoot at the Nam
Oh yeah,
for sure.
he was always. I remember the year that he actually did have a booth. Every time I went down there to go see him, he would be there would be the noise police would be
Yeah, of
not too far
course,
behind him.
of course.
Yeah,
And
and my
him
buddy
just like
Tommy used to build cabinets for him, so that was how I met those guys too, which was fun.
um. Do you have any big plans that you can talk about for 2022?
Um, yeah, there's going to be a lot of new bases. There's going to be some new, very cool mid price point instruments that will be coming out. I can't really get into detail yet, but there's going to be a lot of new stuff for 2022. We've been working on a very, very cool project up at the custom shop too, headed up by my buddy Will, which we're kind of looking, again, being one of these kind of like preserving the heritage and looking at the past to inform the future. We've been doing a lot of studying of the older Spectre models that were handmade in Brooklyn back in the day, and no two are really alike. And so we've been really taking a good hard look at what makes those instruments special and unique, and how we can incorporate that into what we do
Right.
at the shop. Because over the years, when Stuart had the company, like so many things happened. Like he went from doing things on, with sanding blocks and a pin router, to doing things on a spindle, to then doing things with CNC machines and whatever. So we've kind of trying to unravel the path a little bit of like, what are the magic ones? You hear like with any guitar, it's like, oh, that's a good one, right? So what makes it
Right.
a good one? And so we've spent a lot of time looking at those pretty forensically, and we're gonna hopefully within this within this year we'll be able to roll out some really cool new things out of the custom shop that I think will be, again, like, not wanting to do things the wrong way, quote unquote, to put out some new custom shop instruments that I think will be right up there with like the best of the best Spectres ever made. So that'll be fun.
When people talk about the best of the best, I mean, in your opinion or in the popular opinion, what are they talking about? Are they talking about like the 80s NS2? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the NS2s. Yep.
Is
Yeah,
that
they're talking about.
is that the one? Is that the is that the Mount Fuji? Is that the pinnacle?
That's the one. Yeah, that's the 59. That's the whatever, the 62 Strat.
Right.
It's like early 80s, I would say, early mid 80s, whatever. NS2, because there's two eras. There's the ones they made in Brooklyn, which is like the ones that Sting played, which you know, fucking Sting played it. And then there's the ones that were made at the Kramer factory very, very early on at the Kramer factory, in the mid 80s, which was like the all of the hard rock and metal of that time was
Right.
heavily used with Spectres. And our pretty much our premier artist, Doug Wimbish, who's played with everybody, but his main gig is Living Color. He's got some of those basses that, in his opinion, and we share that opinion, that they're kind of like the ones.
What a
So, and that has to do with
sick
the
bass
woods, the shape.
player.
What's up?
What an incredible bass player.
He's no one like him. He's more than a bass player, man. He's just like, he does things that no
Yeah,
one can do.
he's ridiculous.
So that's it. I mean, that's kind of like, again, talking about rewarding things, and to be able to do that as a project and really put something out into the world that we think is going to stand up and really elevate the brand back to where it should be, And so that's that. I'm sure there'll be some other stuff happening, but yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah. And hopefully we can show off some of these things at whatever the next name show is.
Right. I would love the opportunity to visit the shop again
Dude,
when
anytime,
you're
man. It's a
around. And
little weird right now just because of the way things are spiking again,
of course.
unfortunately. But you're so close that I'll just get into the habit of texting you anytime I'm there.
I'm not trying to like be the guy who shows up, gets everyone sick, and shuts down production. That's a good way to never get invited back.
Yeah, it's like, who's that guy? Yeah, fuck that guy. He's never come back.
Who was that guy that brought the great squirrel jerky but got everyone sick? What about the band? Plans for 2022 aside from these shows? More recording?
Maybe, this is our first stab at being like a band that's not all in the same, half the band's in New York City, half the band's in Long Island. Well, was that way. Now I'm in Chicago. So we're trying to like grow up and learn how to use computers and write music and stuff remotely. And we have not succeeded at that just yet, but we've got riffs and songs and some stuff. So yeah, it's January now. So I would say hopefully by the end of the year we get some recording done.
Yeah.
And probably put out an EP, something like that.
Awesome.
And would like to play some more gigs, if we can. Because we're playing the Midwest now. Would like to get out to California, West Coast, do that again. It's been a while since we did that. So yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome.
I've learned over the past couple of years that you just can't make plans for anything. So just see what happens.
Not in the last couple of years. Yeah, no, there are many hurdles.
Yeah. So
I'm
sure there's some really great restaurants in the country that we haven't been to yet. So we'd like to play those gigs.
What's your favorite food city?
I don't know if I'm just being a biased and wanting to be, proud of where I live right now, but Chicago's rocking, like we have not had a bad meal yet, whether it be takeout, sit down, whatever,
Is that right?
Fast food, or fine dining. It's all good.
Let me ask you the hard question though.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna sort of galvanize whether you're a true Chicagoan. Have you solidified your relationship with deep dish?
Yeah.
And
it's good. It's fine.
It's just fine. That's all though. It's not as good as New York pizza.
I don't even think it's like a conversation. Like it's so obviously two different things.
Right.
And New York pizza is the best, and
Chicago
like I don't know. I have this
conversation
like all the time now because people. Yeah, right. It's a difference of like, do I want to just like eat something, like drink a soda, and then go about my life and live the rest of my day, or do I want to like sit down, eat something, and then go to sleep immediately?
Right. Eat one slice and then basically have to go on blood thinners.
Yeah. Right. Which there's a time and a place for that.
Are there any vegan deep dish restaurants? That's what I'm curious about. I bet there are.
I probably not that I'm aware of. I was eating. My wife and I were like vegetarian-ish for the last few years, but we've recently started eating meat again in Chicago just because like everything's so fucking delicious, and I want to eat. I want to try all these restaurants,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm off the vegan deep dish.
Good for you. I'm glad that we finally made this happen.
Yeah, me too, man. It was a lot of fun.
It's embarrassing that it took so long. I feel like, once every few months, I'd text you and be like, let's make this happen. And you'd be like, all right, there's only 1 week where I'm not available. And then I just get buried. And then,
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm glad we made it happen. And I look forward to seeing you again, hopefully at the shop. And it's been fun getting another good thing about this industry, man, is that like you just sent me an email one day. I know about your stuff through, I don't even know, like I heard the podcast. My buddy Johnny, who does Daredevil pedals, I saw
oh,
him on
yeah.
one of your videos, you know.
He's been in a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you hit me up, I was like, yeah, I know this guy, even though I don't know you at all, but it's like, yeah, I know this guy. Let's make it happen.
Did you knew Johnny before you moved to Chicago?
Yes. Dude, I literally think I just bumped into him at a NAMM show, like actually bumped into him and was like, hey, I have one of your pedals. And he was like, and at that time he was like, didn't even have a booth. He was just there, like just
wandering,
cruising.
Yeah.
And I happened because he put out a like a Ron Ashton
a fuzz,
like a Stooges kind of fuzz thing.
Yeah.
Which I think maybe he still makes it. But I had one because I got it from CME or some shit, and I was like, this thing rocks. And so I just happened to, we just struck up a conversation, and we've like kept in touch through fucking Instagram and shit,
Yeah.
And
he's great.
Now I live in Chicago, and he's in Chicago, and we hang out. So it's awesome.
Awesome. He should design some electronics.
That was really the thing that I think we started corresponding about, because I saw him at another NAMM show and was like, hey, we just bought Spectre. Like, we have this really cool preamp circuit that we put in all the custom shop stuff. It's a 2-band EQ, but it just has a certain flavor to it. It's really nice. And I wanted him to make some shit that you like. How cool would it be if you could do more than just an EQ or some kind of drive circuit or whatever.
Yeah.
And that never happened. So I'll have to ask him to do that again.
I've got a terrible idea that I've just been like mulling over in my head lately. And it's just like, every once in a while I get these terrible ideas. And unfortunately, some of them come to fruition. And, they bring me a lot of joy, but they just bleed me of any money that I might have. They're always stupid and always silly and funny, but this I think I want to make like a Beetle bass, but big, not like an upright bass, but like it's bigger than that tiny little body. That tiny little body is silly to me. I like the shape. I just want it big, but I want to have some onboard effects like fuzz and an envelope filter. Like that was pretty hot in the 70s.
I think it's kind of a little bit coming back. I don't think it's going to be like for everybody, but I don't know if you know Chase Bliss effects,
Yeah.
Seen their pedals and stuff. They just did a thing with built guitars, where they put one of their weird pedals called the Mood. It's like a delay looper. I don't even know what the hell you call it. It makes all kinds of crazy noises. And they put it in the guitar, and I think people are digging it. Like, I only made a handful of them, and I think they were like raffled off for charity or whatever, but people were going nuts about the prospect of having other effects in your instrument.
Right.
And not necessarily something you can interact with and not have to be on the floor,
Right. Something more musical or maybe a little more creative than having
more. Yeah, I think like more creative.
Right.
Right, like, because this is a very, it's a very idiosyncratic, like very unique pedal that people really dig, especially for like ambient or like, just making weird guitar noises. And to have it there where you could actually like not have to be kneeled down playing with the knobs.
Right.
Maybe there's something. I think right now, dude, we're living in the golden age of gear. Anything's
We live
possible.
in the golden age of whatever the fuck you want if you can afford it. Huh? There are private parties building spaceships and going into outer space. We live in the golden era of whatever the fuck you want if you can afford it.
If you got the dough,
Yeah.
we'll make it happen.
People own islands and
Yeah.
go to space, and it's nuts.
That's fucking crazy.
I say sell 1 million custom shop bases. Why not? And the sky's the limit. Make custom shop bases that can fly. Fuck it. You know, flying be nothing. Flying instrument. Why not?
Dude, I think you're onto something, man.
I'm an idea man.
Yeah. That may be an idea you don't want to bring to fruition. That sounds expensive.
A flying instrument?
A flying instrument sounds pricey.
I mean, someone would want to buy it.
Someone
There's
will
some
buy it.
billionaire somewhere that would be like, oh, I got to have that. I've already got 1059s, right?
Yeah, right. None of them fly.
Yeah, not a one of them fly. What have I been... what a waste of money. Trade you straight across. Nope. Oh, you mean for all 10, right?
Yeah.
That seems like a great place to stop me blabbering about terrible ideas. Thanks again for generously giving me so much time, and also being so friendly when I just like bombarded you by in an email and just saying,
dude,
like, come on up anytime.
That's what it's all about, man. Again, I got to thank you for reaching out and for having me on here. I'm probably way less accomplished than many of your illustrious guests. I mean, you just had fucking Zach Wilde on here.
Yeah, we're kind of a big deal here, Couchris.
And I got to commend you for the Brian Baker interview. He's one of my guitar gods. So that was a joy.
I just thumbed through the recent issue of. I still subscribe to a couple of guitar magazines. It's something that I've done since I was a teenager. Now I get it on the iPad, but scrolling through, and this newest issue is like, a parade of famous-ish people, famous-ish people, and like their favorite things of 2021. And although Brian Baker didn't name Couch Riffs, one of like, you get 3 things, like, favorite band, favorite riff or solo, from whatever, favorite thing you did. And he says, play on a track with Kathy Valentine. And I was like,
and you made that happen?
I did that. I took a picture of it and sent it to him and said, Happy New Year.
Yeah, buddy. That's what it's all about.
Pretty weird world, man. It's a weird world.
It's great though, man. And I love that an email can be sent, a fucking direct message on Instagram can be sent, and then you're cutting a guitar track with fucking Brian Baker.
Before you know it, you're texting with people you grew up like,
I have a couple of those, like, yeah, I've had a couple of those moments, and I have a couple of those numbers in my phone. I'm just like, what? Why did this fucking person even bother with me?
Doing here? Right. It's incredible. Life is amazing.
Yeah. Sure
that is a perfect place for us to stop.
Agreed.
Hey, Happy New Year to you. And again, I'm super excited for anything and everything that you have coming, because you clearly are a person who is ambitious and favors quality, and I appreciate that.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words, and I hope to see you soon.
I'm going to stop this recording, and then we're going to